Have you ever wondered what your guardian angel observes while you sleep? Saint Teresa of Avila received a mystical revelation that the Church kept hidden for centuries. What your angel sees each night in your sleeping soul will forever change the way you rest. Saint Teresa of Avila, the great mystic of Carmel, received during her ecstasies an extraordinary revelation about the nightly watch of guardian angels. In her mystical writings, the saint left testimonies about what these heavenly beings behold when we close our eyes and the soul enters its most vulnerable rest. What she discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about sleep and divine protection. If you want your guardian angel to protect you tonight, write in the comments, "My angel, watch over my rest." Stay until the end, because I'll reveal exactly what your angel sees in your sleeping soul and how that gaze determines the protection you receive each night. Before we begin, hit like if you want to wake up each morning knowing you were guarded while you slept, and subscribe if you long to understand the mystery of that invisible presence that never abandons you. Saint Teresa of Avila lived for years without understanding the mystery that unfolded each night in her convent cell. She believed, like all the religious sisters of her time, that sleep was simply a necessary rest for the body, a pause in spiritual life until awakening. But one night, during one of her mystical raptures, the Lord revealed something that would forever transform her understanding of nightly rest. He showed her that when the soul withdraws into sleep, it isn't abandoned. On the contrary, it enters a state of sacred vulnerability where an invisible presence keeps watch without rest. The saint wrote in her journals that sleep isn't God's absence, but silent intimacy. When we close our eyes and consciousness withdraws, the soul is exposed in its most naked truth. It can no longer pretend, no longer hide behind pious words or devout gestures. It simply rests. And in that rest, something extraordinary happens. Something you yourself have experienced without knowing it. Saint Teresa understood that there exists a constant witness to that state, a being of light who remains beside your bed while your breathing becomes slow and deep, a guardian who knows every beat of your heart, every unconscious sigh, every movement beneath the sheets. This isn't a distant watchman. It's a presence so close that it perceives the inner trembling you don't even recognize when you awaken. The Carmelite mystic discovered that this heavenly being doesn't observe with indifference. His gaze isn't cold or distant like that of a guardian fulfilling a duty. It's a gaze filled with tenderness, with infinite compassion, with profound knowledge. It's the gaze of one who loves you more than you love yourself. And each night, without your knowing, that gaze rests upon you with a specific intention. During her nights of prayer in the convent of Saint Joseph of Avila, Saint Teresa began to perceive that presence with a clarity that moved her deeply. She felt she wasn't alone in the darkness of her cell. But what she experienced wasn't fear. It was a profound consolation, a certainty of protection that didn't come from the convent walls or the company of her sister religious. It came from something invisible, but absolutely real. The saint understood that God, in His infinite mercy, doesn't leave the soul alone during hours of unconsciousness. Sleep is the moment of greatest helplessness for the human being. When we sleep, we cannot defend ourselves. We cannot pray with words. We cannot invoke help. We're completely defenseless. And precisely for that reason, God assigns each soul a special custodian who doesn't sleep, who doesn't blink, who never gets distracted. This heavenly guardian is your angel. And his mission during the night isn't simply to watch that no physical harm comes to you. His mission is much deeper, much more intimate. Saint Teresa discovered that the guardian angel contemplates something that can only be seen when the soul is asleep. Something that during the day remains hidden beneath layers of conscious will, daily occupations, worldly concerns. The revelation Saint Teresa received wasn't immediate. It was progressive, like all divine teachings. Night after night, the Lord showed her aspects of this mystery she had never imagined. And what she discovered filled her with wonder, with gratitude, and also with holy fear, because she understood that nothing of what we are remains hidden during sleep. You also have an angel who watches you each night. While your family sleeps in nearby rooms, while the house fills with silence and darkness, while your body rests on the mattress and your mind sinks into dreams, that luminous being remains at your side. You don't see him, but he sees you. You don't feel him, but he feels every movement of your soul. You don't hear him, but he hears even the sighs you don't utter. Saint Teresa wrote that this knowledge changed the way she went to bed each night. She no longer retired to sleep as one who withdraws from spiritual life. She lay down knowing she was entering an intimate sanctuary where God Himself, through His angel, would accompany her in a special way. And that awareness filled her with peace, but also with responsibility. Because what the angel sees during sleep isn't inconsequential. It isn't simple passive observation. What he contemplates in your sleeping soul determines the protection your spirit receives, the graces that descend upon you, the battles fought on your behalf without your knowing. Saint Teresa understood that sleep is a field of spiritual action as important as waking life. Perhaps more important because it's the moment of the soul's greatest truths. The saint didn't immediately reveal everything the Lord showed her. She kept these teachings in her heart for years, sharing them only with her closest spiritual daughters. She knew this knowledge was delicate, profound, transforming. She knew that whoever received it could never sleep the same way again. And now, you're about to receive that same revelation. What Saint Teresa discovered about your angel's gaze while you sleep will change your understanding of rest, of divine protection, of your own soul. Because what that heavenly being contemplates each night in you is something even you don't fully know. Something that can only be seen when consciousness withdraws and the soul is exposed in its purest spiritual nakedness. Saint Teresa understood that the guardian angel's first action at the beginning of your sleep is to rest his gaze upon your breathing. This isn't a minor detail. Breathing during sleep reveals the soul's deep state in a way no verbal prayer could express. When your body surrenders to rest and your chest rises and falls with measured rhythm, the angel reads in that movement something that escapes your consciousness. The saint wrote that sleeping breath is like a silent language between the soul and God. Each inhalation is an unconscious plea. Each exhalation is a surrender. And the angel, who knows that heavenly language, interprets what your soul is communicating without words. He observes whether your breathing is calm or agitated, whether it's deep or shallow, whether there's peace in that rhythm or whether the day's restlessness persists. During her nights of contemplation, Saint Teresa noticed that her own breathing changed when she lay down in a state of grace. It became more serene, more confident, as if the body itself knew it was protected. But she also observed that on nights following days of spiritual tepidness, her breathing remained altered even during sleep, as if the soul couldn't rest fully. The guardian angel perceives this difference, not to judge you, but to adjust his protection according to your need. Saint Teresa understood that when the soul rests in peace, the angel can dedicate himself to other heavenly tasks on your behalf. But when the soul is disturbed, the angel remains closer, watching with greater attention, interceding with greater intensity. Your sleeping breath reveals if you carry unconfessed guilt, if you drag resentments you haven't released, if you hold worries you haven't surrendered to God. The angel doesn't need you to tell him with words. He reads it in the air entering and leaving your lungs. He perceives it in the tension of your chest, in the frequency of your heartbeats, in the way your body refuses to relax completely. Saint Teresa recounted that on one occasion, after a particularly difficult day in the convent, she lay down carrying in her heart a complaint against one of her sisters. There was no grave sin, but neither had she completely forgiven. That night she felt in her spirit that her angel was uneasy. He didn't abandon her, but his presence was different. It was as if the heavenly guardian was waiting for something from her. Upon awakening, the saint understood. Her agitated breathing during sleep had been an involuntary confession of her lack of charity. And her angel, faithful custodian, had remained watching with greater care, protecting her not only from external dangers, but also from the interior hardness threatening her peace. Sleeping breath is also a spiritual thermometer. When a mother lies down after a day of loving service to her family, her breathing is different from when she lies down with the weight of impatience or complaint. The angel observes that difference, and according to what he contemplates, he intercedes before God's throne in a specific way. Saint Teresa taught that this first gaze of the angel is an act of mercy, because God wants to know the real state of your soul, not what you pretend during the day, and sleep is the moment of truth. When you sleep, you cannot fake peace. You cannot simulate serenity. Your breathing reveals what truly dwells within you. But there's something more the angel observes in that breathing. Something Saint Teresa discovered with wonder. The heavenly guardian not only looks at your soul's present, he also contemplates in your sleeping breath the wounds of the past that haven't yet healed, the old sorrows still oppressing your chest, the forgotten traumas your conscious mind no longer remembers, but your body still carries. The angel sees all this in the simple act of breathing while you sleep, and according to what he contemplates, he requests specific graces for you. He asks for consolation for that wound. He asks for healing for that memory. He asks for light for that darkness you don't even know you carry. Saint Teresa understood. That's why some mornings we wake up not knowing why we feel lighter. Without having done anything during the night, without having consciously prayed, we dawn with an inexplicable peace. It's because the angel interceded. It's because while you slept and your breathing confessed your secret sorrows, your heavenly guardian carried those sorrows before God and obtained the balm you needed. The angel's first gaze upon your sleeping breath is then an act of profound knowledge and loving intercession. It isn't cold surveillance, it's intimate care, it's personalized attention, it's divine love manifested through a heavenly being who never tires of watching over you. And this is barely the first of the gazes your angel rests upon you each night, because breathing is only the surface. What the angel contemplates beneath that measured rhythm is much deeper, much more revealing. Saint Teresa discovered that there exists a second gaze, a more penetrating observation that reaches the hidden layers of the soul. While your chest rises and falls in your room's darkness, while silence envelops your home and everyone sleeps, your angel doesn't settle for observing your body at rest. His gaze pierces the flesh, pierces the bones, pierces even the superficial thoughts floating in your dreams, and it reaches a place only God and He can see. Saint Teresa discovered that when the soul surrenders to sleep, it doesn't arrive empty at that rest. It arrives marked. Each word spoken during the day, each harbored thought, each action performed, leaves an invisible trace on the soul. And those traces, which during waking hours remain hidden beneath the mind's constant activity, emerge clearly when you sleep. The guardian angel contemplates them one by one. The saint understood this truth after years of examining her own conscience before sleeping. She noticed that when she lay down, without having reviewed her day, her sleep was restless. Not as divine punishment, but because her soul carried the weight of unrecognized actions, unmeasured words, unpurified thoughts. And her angel, contemplating those traces, worked during the night to protect her from the spiritual consequences of those oversights. The day's traces aren't only grave sins. Saint Teresa warned they're also small impatiences, silent judgments against neighbors, muttered complaints, failures of charity disguised as sincerity. All those everyday actions we consider insignificant leave deep marks on the soul. And when you sleep, those marks are exposed to the angel's gaze. Imagine your soul as a white canvas at the beginning of the day. Each interaction, each decision, each emotion leaves strokes on that canvas. Some strokes are luminous, fruit of charity and prayer. Others are shadows, consequence of tepidness or selfishness. At day's end, when you close your eyes, that canvas is completely painted. And it's that complete picture your angel contemplates. Saint Teresa recounted that in a mystical vision, she saw how her guardian angel observed her soul after a particularly difficult day in the convent. It had been a day of reforms, of tensions with other religious, of hard decisions she had to make as foundress. Upon lying down, she felt her angel wasn't only looking but reading the traces of each conversation, of each repressed tear, of each act of forced patience. What most amazed the saint was discovering that the angel didn't read those traces to condemn her. He read them to understand her, to know exactly where she needed more grace, more consolation, more strength. Each trace was valuable information the heavenly guardian used to intercede specifically. The day's traces also reveal your real priorities, not those you profess with your mouth. If you spent the day worried about material matters, that worry leaves a trace of anxiety on your soul. If you spent the day in loving service to your family, that love leaves a trace of light. The angel doesn't need to ask how your day was. He sees it engraved on your sleeping soul. Saint Teresa taught that's why nightly examination of conscience is so important. Not to torment yourself with guilt, but to consciously clean those traces before sleeping. Because when you lie down after having recognized your faults and having surrendered them to God in prayer, your angel finds a cleaner soul to contemplate, and he can dedicate his nightly vigilance to other deeper needs. But even when you don't make that examination, the angel continues reading, continues contemplating, and continues interceding. Saint Teresa discovered that divine mercy is so great that not even our nightly neglect leaves us unprotected. The angel works with what he finds. He reads the dark traces and asks forgiveness in your name. He reads the luminous traces and presents them as offerings before God's throne. The day's traces also include lost opportunities. Those moments when you could have consoled and didn't. Those occasions when you could have prayed and chose distraction. Those people who needed your patience and received your irritation. Everything is recorded, and the angel sees it with perfect clarity. It isn't an accusatory gaze. Saint Teresa always insisted on this point. The angel's gaze is never one of reproach. It's one of loving knowledge. It's the gaze of one who wants to help you be better, not of one who seeks to point out your miseries. That's why he contemplates those traces with infinite compassion, knowing you're human, knowing you struggle, knowing that many times you fall without wanting to fall. There are particular traces the angel observes with special attention. The traces left by hurtful words toward your children or spouse, the marks of envy disguised as legitimate concern, the traces of vanity hidden under the appearance of dignity, all those realities that during the day you justify or deny are exposed in your sleeping soul. Saint Teresa warned that traces of grace also exist. The small acts of renunciation no one saw. The secret prayers you raised amid your tasks. The heroic patience you exercised when no one thanked you. Those traces shine with special light before the angel's gaze, and he gathers them as treasures to present before God. the heavenly guardian also reads the traces of your conversations. Each spoken word leaves an echo in the soul. If during the day you participated in gossip, even just listening without stopping it, that complicity leaves a mark. If you defended the honor of the absent, that courage leaves a luminous trace. The angel sees everything, weighs everything, presents everything before God. Saint Teresa understood that this second gaze of the angel is a gift of divine providence, because it means nothing of your spiritual effort is lost, not even the smallest sacrifices. Those you yourself forget the moment you make them. Your angel guards them, contemplates them, values them, and uses them to obtain graces you don't even know you need. But there's something even deeper that the angel discovers when reading the day's traces in your sleeping soul. Something even you don't remember when you awaken. Something that remains buried in your being's most hidden layers and only emerges in sleep's darkness. Saint Teresa discovered that sleep isn't only rest for the body, it's also the moment when the soul releases what it represses during the day. The fears you don't dare name, the terrors you hide under layers of apparent strength, the anguish you deny even to yourself. All of that emerges when you sleep, taking form in disturbing dreams, in sudden awakenings, in nocturnal oppression you can't explain. The guardian angel contemplates those fears with a clarity you don't possess. He sees the fear of death you hide under daily routines. He sees the terror of solitude you conceal beneath constant occupations. He sees the dread of not having been enough for your children, of having failed in your maternal mission, of arriving before God with empty hands. All those terrors you keep under control during the day emerge in your sleep as shadows your angel must confront. Saint Teresa confessed she herself experienced these nocturnal fears. She feared having founded her convents in vain. She feared her reform would fail. She feared being deceived by the devil in her mystical visions. And all those anxieties, which during the day she fought with prayer and confidence, reappeared in her dreams, transformed into disturbing images. It was then she understood her angel fought battles for her while she slept. Buried fears are different from conscious worries. They're ancient, deep, often irrational. The fear of being abandoned you've dragged since childhood. The dread of suffering born from past painful experiences. The anguish before illness and the body's decay. All those primal terrors that faith doesn't always manage to completely uproot. Your angel sees them emerge in your dreams. He sees how your soul struggles against them without the defenses of waking reason, and he acts. Saint Teresa understood that many times we wake from nightmares without remembering them clearly, but with a feeling of inexplicable relief. It's because the angel intervened, because he cut the disturbing dream before it caused deep harm to your spirit. There's a particular fear the angel observes with special care in women your age. The fear of your own death and the death of loved ones. That silent terror visiting you on sleepless nights. That anguish oppressing your chest when you think of the day when you'll no longer be here to care for your own. The angel contemplates that fear and knows it in its totality. Saint Teresa taught that this fear isn't sin, it's human. Even saints experienced it. What matters is how the soul responds to it. And during sleep, when you cannot respond consciously, your angel responds for you. He infuses peace where there's terror. He whispers consolations your soul captures without words. He reminds you, in a language transcending reason, that you're not alone. Recurring dreams are windows to those buried fears. If you repeatedly dream you're losing something valuable, your angel reads in that the fear of loss governing many of your daily decisions. If you dream you're being pursued, he contemplates the fear of being caught by consequences of past mistakes. Each one-iric image is a symbol the heavenly guardian interprets. Saint Teresa recounted that sometimes her angel allowed her to dream about her deepest fears, not to torment her, but so that upon awakening she could recognize them and consciously surrender them to God. Those dreams were paradoxically graces, because they brought to light what was hidden, allowing divine mercy to heal it. There also exists the fear of divine judgment, dwelling in the depths of the soul of every woman seeking God. That dread of not being holy enough, pure enough, faithful enough. During the day you combat it with confidence in mercy. But during the night, that fear emerges disguised as nameless anguish, and your angel contemplates it with infinite tenderness. The heavenly guardian doesn't judge your fear. He understands it. He knows it's fruit of your wounded humanity, of your consciousness of imperfection, of your genuine desire to please God, and that's why he acts as mediator. He presents your fear before the divine throne, not as fault, but as a sign of love, because only one who loves fears not loving enough. Saint Teresa discovered there are fears that can only be healed during sleep. They're too deep to reach with conscious prayer. They're rooted in experiences so ancient that memory no longer retains them clearly. But the soul remembers them, and the angel, contemplating those primordial fears, requests special graces of interior healing. That's why some mornings you wake up feeling something changed inside you without knowing exactly what. It's that during the night, your angel worked in the depths of your soul. He untied knots of fear you didn't even know were there. He cleaned wounds so old you already considered them part of your identity. And he did it while you slept, while your consciousness rested, leaving space for grace to act without resistance. The fear of abandonment, the terror of insignificance, the anguish before existential emptiness, all those phantoms stalking the human soul come out of their hiding places during sleep, and there, in that absolute vulnerability, your angel confronts them, not with violence, but with the light of divine presence he reflects. Simply by remaining at your side, that heavenly being dissolves the shadows of terror. Saint Teresa warned that ignoring these fears doesn't eliminate them. It only buries them deeper. But when the angel contemplates them during your sleep, he has the opportunity to bring them before God, to be healed from the root. That's why night, far from being wasted time in spiritual life, is time of profound healing. But the angel's gaze doesn't stop at fears, because beneath those terrors, in the sleeping soul's most intimate layers, there exists something that can only be seen when everything else is silenced. Saint Teresa of Avila discovered a truth that transformed her understanding of spiritual life. The soul never stops praying. Even when the conscious mind is occupied with daily tasks, even when the lips don't pronounce any pious word, the soul maintains a constant dialogue with God. And during sleep, when all distractions are silenced, that prayer becomes purer, more authentic, more naked. The guardian angel contemplates that unconscious prayer with reverent wonder. He sees how your soul, freed from reason's and will's control, turns toward God with absolute sincerity. The sighs you exhale during sleep aren't just breathing. They're wordless pleas. They're longings of the soul that during the day find no expression. The saint understood that's why the sleep of the just is precious before God's eyes. Not because they sleep more than others, but because during that rest, their soul prays with crystalline purity, without pretensions, without learned formalisms, without the effort of seeking elevated words. It simply presents itself before God as it is, needy, trusting, hungry for His presence. Your angel gathers those nocturnal sighs as if they were precious incense. He carries them before the divine throne and presents them as the most authentic prayers you've uttered all day, because they're prayers of the pure heart, not contaminated by spiritual vanity or calculated tepidness. They're the real cry of the soul knowing itself creature before its creator. Saint Teresa recounted that in her mystical ecstasies, She witnessed how the guardian angels of all the earth constantly ascended toward heaven, carrying the nocturnal prayers of sleeping souls. It was a continuous river of silent pleas, of unexpressed longings, of unconscious but genuine love. And God received them with particular delight because He knew they came from the truest depths of the human heart. During sleep, your soul prays for things you don't dare ask for during the day. It prays for forgiveness of sins you've forgotten, but that still weigh on your deep conscience. It prays for the salvation of loved ones who've already departed. It prays asking for light for decisions you don't even know you'll soon have to make. The soul, in its hidden wisdom, knows needs the conscious mind ignores. The angel contemplates those prayers with the function of heavenly interpreter. Because your soul doesn't always pray clearly. Sometimes its prayer is only a groan, an undefined nostalgia, a thirst unable to name itself. And the angel translates those murmurs into concrete petitions he presents before God. He knows the soul's language better than you yourself. Saint Teresa taught that this unconscious prayer explains many inexplicable graces. Those blessings you receive without having asked for them. Those solutions arriving just in time without your having prayed for them. It's that your soul asked for them while you slept, and your angel presented them. And God, who hears the heart's prayer more than words from lips, granted them. There are nights when your soul prays with particular intensity. They're the nights after days of great suffering, when you lie down exhausted without strength to pray. You think you're falling asleep, abandoning your spiritual life, but it's the opposite. Your soul, free from the burden of seeking words, cries out to God with a force no nightly rosary could equal. The angel also sees the intercessory prayers your soul pronounces without knowing it. While you sleep, your maternal heart continues watching over your children. And that internal vigil becomes continuous prayer your angel carries before God. Each concern, each hope, each desire for good for your own is transformed into plea the heavenly guardian presents in your name. Saint Teresa discovered this is the highest form of contemplative prayer. Not that achieved with effort in long hours of meditation, but that which springs naturally when the soul rests in God without pretending anything. During sleep, without seeking it, without deserving it, you enter a state of communion with God many mystics seek for years without reaching. Your angel guards that nocturnal communion with particular zeal. He doesn't allow anything to interrupt it. He keeps away temptations that would want to disturb your rest. He maintains at a distance negative influences that would seek to contaminate that pure prayer. Because he knows that in those hours of unconscious prayer, much of your spiritual life is decided. The sleeping soul's prayer doesn't only ask for itself. Saint Teresa observed with wonder that the just soul, even asleep, intercedes for others. It prays for the church. It prays for sinners. It prays for souls in purgatory. As if true love couldn't be silenced even in deepest sleep. The angel gathers all those intercessions and unites them with the prayers of the saints in heaven. Thus, without knowing it, while you sleep, you're participating in the great cosmic liturgy that never ceases. Your measured breathing becomes silent song. Your innocent rest becomes adoration. Your tranquil sleep is pleasing offering to God. Saint Teresa warned that this truth should change the way we go to bed. Not as one who abandons the day and withdraws from God, but as one who enters the most intimate sanctuary of divine presence. Sleep isn't interruption of spiritual life. It's its most authentic expression because it's the most stripped of human artifice. That's why the angel watches your sleep with such reverence. He doesn't only protect your defenseless body, he guards your purest prayer. He keeps that silent dialogue between your soul and God as if it were the most valuable treasure. Because it is. It's proof that beyond your conscious efforts, beyond your daily tepidness, in the depths of your being dwells a love for God that not even sleep can extinguish. And all this contemplation the angel makes of your breathing, of your day's traces, of your buried fears and your unconscious prayer has a final purpose Saint Teresa took years to fully understand. Saint Teresa understood that all the guardian angel's gazes during your sleep aren't separate actions. They're parts of a single contemplation, of a continuous act of loving custody. The angel doesn't observe your breathing, then the day's traces, then your fears, then your prayer as if they were isolated realities. He sees them all simultaneously, understands them in their profound connection, and weaves with them a protection perfectly adjusted to your specific need that night. The saint compared it to the work of an expert weaver. Each thread has its color, its texture, its particular place in the fabric. But only when all are interwoven does the complete tapestry emerge, the coherent image. Thus, the angel takes each aspect of your sleeping soul and with it constructs the spiritual defense you need until dawn. If your breathing reveals restlessness and the day's traces show unresolved guilt, the angel knows you need protection against demonic accusation. During the night, the enemy seeks to take advantage of that guilt to sink you in discouragement. But your heavenly guardian prevents it, reminding you in the soul's silence of God's infinite mercy. If your buried fears emerge forcefully and your unconscious prayer cries out for consolation, the angel intensifies his closeness. He makes himself more present, though you don't feel it. He infuses in your sleeping spirit a peace that doesn't come from yourself, but from the divine presence he reflects. And you wake up not knowing why you feel less anguished, more confident. Saint Teresa discovered this protection woven by the angel isn't the same every night. It adapts. It adjusts. It responds to the particular circumstances of each day, of each state of the soul, of each need of the moment. That's why 2 consecutive nights can be completely different in their spiritual dynamic, though externally they seem identical. The angel also weaves protection against dangers you don't perceive. There are nights when dark forces seek to attack you precisely when you're most vulnerable. Malignant spirits taking advantage of your unconsciousness to sow harmful suggestions, to provoke nightmares leaving scars on your soul, to weaken your faith from sleep's shadows. Your heavenly guardian confronts them, not with spectacular violence as in apocalyptic visions, but with the simple presence of the divine light he carries. Demons cannot bear that light. They flee from it as shadows flee from dawn, and you continue sleeping ignorant of the battle fought on your behalf, protected by one who never sleeps. Saint Teresa recounted that sometimes she would wake with a start in the middle of the night, feeling an inexplicable oppression. But immediately after she would perceive a peace not coming from her. It was her angel who had just driven away some malignant influence and now surrounded her with his consoling presence. Those sudden awakenings weren't accidents. They were moments when the veil between visible and invisible became thinner. Angelic protection during sleep also includes custody of your imagination. Dreams can be doors toward grace when God speaks to the sleeping soul, but also doors the enemy would want to use to confuse you, to sow disordered desires, to twist your perception of reality. The angel guards those doors, permitting only what's convenient for your spiritual good. Saint Teresa taught that's why some people have prophetic or consoling dreams, while others only experience nocturnal confusion. It's not that God loves some more than others. It's that the soul's state and the angel's vigilance determine what can cross that threshold of sleep. A soul in grace and an attentive angel form a sanctuary where God can speak. A soul in disorder and an angel distanced by sin leave doors open to any influence. The angel also weaves protection for your body. Saint Teresa understood we aren't only souls, we're body and soul united. And the body's rest is necessary for spiritual life. An exhausted body cannot pray with attention. A mind deprived of sleep cannot contemplate clearly. That's why the angel also watches your physical health during the night. He protects your heart that beats without your conscious control. He guards your breathing that could fail. He watches your body from nocturnal accidents that could occur in sleep's unconsciousness. It isn't superstitious to believe this. It's recognizing that divine providence acts through concrete means, and the principal of those means is your guardian angel. Saint Teresa warned this protection woven night after night shouldn't generate presumption. It isn't automatic or unconditional. It responds to your soul's state. A soul seeking God, though imperfectly, receives abundant protection. A soul persistently rejecting grace weakens the shield its angel can interpose against spiritual dangers. That's why how you go to bed matters. It matters if you pray before sleeping or if you simply collapse in bed. It matters if you've asked forgiveness for the day's faults or if you carry them unacknowledged to your rest. It matters if you consciously invoke your angel or if you forget his existence. All that determines the quality of protection you'll receive during the night. The angel doesn't abandon even the soul in mortal sin. Saint Teresa was clear about this. But his capacity to protect is limited because the soul itself has opened doors it shouldn't have opened. It has invited into its interior realities the angel cannot simply expel without the soul's consent. And during sleep, that consent cannot be given consciously. However, God's mercy is so great that even in those circumstances, the angel does what he can. He limits damages. He prevents sin from taking deeper root. He keeps alive some spark of grace, allowing repentance upon awakening. He never abandons completely, though his action is restricted. Saint Teresa understood this truth should fill every person's heart with gratitude, because it means never, absolutely never are you alone at night. Never are you unprotected in your vulnerability. Never are you abandoned to your fate while you sleep. Always, even when you don't deserve it, there's someone keeping watch. But there are errors that can gravely obscure this angelic protection. Actions that distance the angel, not because he wants to abandon you, but because you yourself raise barriers he cannot cross. Saint Teresa of Avila warned, there are 3 common errors that obscure angelic protection during sleep. They aren't mortal sins. They don't expel the angel from your side, but they raise veils between your soul and your heavenly guardian, making his protective work difficult. The saint called them the 3 nocturnal forgettings, because all are born from forgetting who you are and who accompanies you in darkness. The first forgetting is going to bed without prayer. Saint Teresa observed many people, even devout during the day, arrive at night so exhausted they simply collapse in bed without directing a single word to God. It isn't deliberate laziness, it's genuine tiredness. But it has spiritual consequences the guardian angel contemplates with sadness. When you go to bed without praying, your soul enters sleep without having consciously closed the day before God. All the traces accumulated during the day remain unpresented, unrecognized, unsurrendered. And though your angel sees them and can act on them, his work becomes difficult. It's as if you asked him to clean a house without turning on the light. He can do it, but not with the same efficacy as if you'd let him see clearly. The saint taught no long prayer is needed. 30 seconds of sincere recognition suffice. A measured Our Father, an invocation to the guardian angel, a brief act of contrition. But that conscious moment of turning toward God before sleeping makes an immense difference in the quality of your spiritual rest. The angel awaits that moment, not out of obligation or divine requirement, but because in that prayer before sleep, you give him explicit permission to act fully. It's as if you voluntarily opened your soul's doors saying, "Here I am, care for me tonight." And the heavenly guardian responds by entering with all his protective light. Saint Teresa recounted she herself fell into this forgetting for years. When she was a young religious, many nights she arrived so exhausted from convent tasks that she fell asleep without saying accustomed prayers. And she noticed the difference. Her dreams were more restless, her awakenings less peaceful. Her body rested, but not her soul. The second forgetting is going to bed with a heart full of unresolved resentments. Saint Teresa was especially clear on this point. Keeping grudges during the day is already harmful to the soul. But carrying it to sleep is doubly dangerous, because during the night that resentment ferments in the spirit's depths, poisoning it from within. The angel contemplates that poison with relative impotence. He can protect you from many things, but he cannot tear from you a resentment you voluntarily embraced. And though you sleep and aren't conscious of that grudge, your soul continues feeding it. In your dreams appear scenes of revenge or justification. Your body tenses without apparent reason. Your breathing carries the irregular rhythm of one harboring bitterness. The saint taught that's why nocturnal forgiveness is essential. Before lying down, even with effort, even if you don't feel forgiveness in your heart, say with your lips, "Lord, I forgive whoever offended me today." That simple phrase opens spaces in the soul. It allows the angel to work during the night, dissolving the bitterness you yourself cannot consciously release. Not forgiving before sleeping is like going to bed on a bed full of invisible thorns. Your body rests superficially, but your soul bleeds. And the angel, who sees those self-inflicted wounds, can only cover what you allow. If you cling to resentment, he respects your will, though it pains him to contemplate your unnecessary suffering. Saint Teresa especially warned mothers about this forgetting. It's easy to go to bed with a heart hurt by children's words, by family ingratitudes, by spouses' misunderstandings, and it's tempting to feed those wounds in silence, justifying them as legitimate. But each night you sleep with that weight, your soul hardens a little more, and your angel sees you slowly move away from the tenderness God wants for you. The third forgetting is going to bed in deliberate spiritual disorder. This is the most subtle and most grave. It doesn't refer to involuntary sins or human weaknesses. It refers to conscious decisions to maintain situations, relationships, or habits you know are contrary to God's will, and lying down each night without even acknowledging that contradiction before God. The angel contemplates this disorder and suffers, not with human suffering of one who laments, but with the pain of one who knows the good you're losing and the damage you're causing to your own soul. He sees how night after night you go to bed not wanting to see what you must change. And though he continues protecting you from external dangers, he cannot protect you from the consequences of your own choices. Saint Teresa was implacable with herself on this point. When she discovered she had been maintaining tepid friendships distancing her from God, she not only cut them during the day, she examined herself each night asking if she had fallen again into that tepidness, because she knew spiritual disorder tolerated during the day and carried to sleep unacknowledged becomes permanent structure of the soul. This forgetting also includes deliberately going to bed with your conscience dulled, knowing you've seriously failed but not wanting to think about it. Being clear, you must confess, but indefinitely postponing. Recognizing internally that a certain situation in your life offends God, but constructing justifications to maintain it. All that are forms of spiritual disorder. And the angel, contemplating that disorder in your sleeping soul, sees how it solidifies, how what began as weakness becomes habit, how what was conquerable temptation transforms into chains you yourself have forged. His protection remains present, but limited by the walls you yourself have raised. Saint Teresa warned these three forgettings don't affect all people equally. There are souls strong in grace who can occasionally fall into them without grave damage. But there are fragile souls for whom a single repeated forgetting several nights opens dangerous cracks. That's why the saint recommended firmness. Never go to bed without prayer, never sleep with grudge, never rest in deliberate spiritual disorder. The guardian angel waits each night for you to avoid these forgettings, not because he's demanding or severe, but because he knows your fragility. He knows night is time of maximum vulnerability, and he wants to find your soul in the best possible state to protect it fully. Each forgetting is a lost opportunity for nocturnal grace. But God's mercy is infinite, and Saint Teresa taught it's never too late to change the way of going to bed. That even after years of nocturnal forgettings, a single night of conscious preparation suffices to open again the doors to the angel's full protection. Because he never tires of awaiting your conversion. Saint Teresa of Avila developed throughout her life a simple but profoundly effective nocturnal ritual to strengthen the bond with her guardian angel before sleeping. It wasn't a complex set of prayers, nor did it require prolonged time. It was a conscious preparation of the soul, transforming her rest into sacred space. And this practice can be yours too, adapted to your life, to your circumstances, to your own search for God. The ritual began with a moment of silence. Saint Teresa would sit on the edge of her pallet, still dressed, and simply keep quiet. She didn't think about anything particular. She didn't obsessively review the day. She just quieted herself, allowing the day's interior noise to settle. This initial silence lasted the time of 3 deep, conscious breaths. The saint taught this silence is essential because it marks the transition between day and night, between activity and rest. It's like closing a door before opening another. And in that silent threshold, the soul prepares to enter sleep's sanctuary with reverence, not with haste. After silence came recognition. Saint Teresa would pronounce quietly or mentally a simple phrase: "Lord, here my day ends. I surrender to you everything that was, the good and the bad, what was achieved and what failed." It wasn't detailed examination of conscience. It was global surrender, like one who at end of a workday puts all tools in their place, knowing tomorrow they'll take them up again. This recognition freed her soul from the weight of wanting to control the uncontrollable. She accepted the day had been as it was, with its lights and shadows. And by consciously surrendering it to God, she stopped carrying it as burden to sleep. The angel, contemplating this surrender, could then work with greater freedom in her soul during the night. The third step was explicit forgiveness. Saint Teresa would inwardly name, without details, any person who had offended her or whom she had offended that day. And she'd say, "I forgive and ask forgiveness." 4 words, nothing more. But those words opened spaces in her heart that during the day had remained closed by pain or pride. The saint insisted this forgiveness doesn't require emotionally feeling reconciliation. It's act of will, not of feeling. Many nights she forgave without feeling immediate peace. But by doing it before sleeping, she allowed grace to work during the night at levels deeper than superficial emotion. And she often woke with a lighter heart, without knowing exactly why. After forgiveness came direct invocation to the guardian angel. Saint Teresa had composed her own brief prayer, but she taught each person can formulate their own. What matters aren't the exact words, but sincere intention. Her invocation was approximately this: "My angel, faithful custodian God gave me, watch my sleep tonight. Protect my soul from all evil. Guard my body from all danger. And if God wants to speak to me in dreams, open my interior ears to hear him." This invocation recognized 3 realities: the angel's personal existence, his protective mission, and his function as mediator between God and the soul. It wasn't anguished plea or fearful petition. It was serene confidence in whom God himself has assigned as guardian. The angel, hearing this invocation, received explicit permission to act fully. Saint Teresa sometimes added a specific petition according to the moment's needs, If it had been a day of strong temptations, she asked special protection against the enemy's nocturnal suggestion. If it had been a day of difficult decisions, she asked for light to discern in dreams what she should do. If it had been time of spiritual aridity, she asked for consolation, restoring her spirit upon awakening. The fifth element of the ritual was the sign of the cross over her own body. Saint Teresa signed herself slowly, consciously, naming each person of the Trinity. In the name of the Father who created me, of the Son who redeemed me, of the Holy Spirit who sanctifies me. And upon finishing, she kissed the crucifix she always carried before leaving it on the small table by her bed. This sign of the cross wasn't mechanical gesture, it was seal of protection. It marked her body as temple of the Holy Spirit. And the angel, contemplating that gesture of faith, reaffirmed his vigilance over that temple during hours of unconsciousness. The saint taught demons respect the sign of the cross when made with true faith, not as superstition, but as confession of faith in Christ crucified. Finally, Saint Teresa would lie down with a specific mental image. She didn't let herself fall into sleep thinking about pending problems or next day's worries. She intentionally directed her imagination towards some gospel scene, giving her peace. She often chose the image of Mary holding the child Jesus, or of Jesus sleeping in the boat during the storm, showing absolute confidence in the Father. This final image before sleep served as entrance door to rest. The soul, instead of submerging into sleep from anxiety or mental disorder, entered from serene contemplation. And the angel, seeing that interior disposition, could work with more docile material. The dreams that followed were frequently more peaceful, more ordered, sometimes even bearers of spiritual consolations. Saint Teresa warned this ritual doesn't work like magic. Some nights, even after practicing it faithfully, sleep was restless. Other times came nocturnal temptations or nightmares. But she noticed a fundamental difference. On those difficult nights, she never felt alone in the struggle. She felt her angel's protective presence, though the battle was hard. Constancy in this ritual gradually transformed the saint's nocturnal experience. Not spectacularly or immediately, but with the patience of one cultivating a garden. Each night was a planted seed, and with time, the fruit was deeper rest, more evident protection, a peace upon awakening not coming from external circumstances, but from interior grace. The saint recommended adapting this ritual to each personal situation. An exhausted mother can reduce it to essentials: 3 breaths, brief surrender, invocation to angel, sign of cross. A sick person can do it mentally without moving. A religious can expand it with brief readings. What matters isn't duration but intention and constancy. And those who practice this ritual with fidelity begin noticing signs. Signs they're not alone at night. Signs someone watches while they rest. Saint Teresa of Avila taught that the guardian angel's presence during sleep isn't always invisible or imperceptible. Concrete signs exist, subtle but real, revealing his active vigilance. They're not spectacular manifestations or luminous apparitions. They're delicate touches on the soul, everyday experiences passing unnoticed to one who doesn't know to recognize them. But for the attentive heart, they're precious confirmations you're never alone in darkness. The first sign is awakening in deep peace without apparent reason. Saint Teresa experienced this frequently. Some mornings she'd open her eyes with an interior serenity not corresponding to her external circumstances. Perhaps there were grave problems in the convent. Perhaps she faced persecutions or misunderstandings. But upon awakening, she felt a peace surpassing all human logic. That peace was her angel's work, who had worked during the night healing invisible wounds. This peace isn't simple absence of worry. It's positive presence of consolation. It's the sensation everything will be well, though you don't know how. It's confidence not coming from rational analysis, but from profound certainty planted in the soul while you slept. Your angel sowed it there, watering it with the divine light he reflects, allowing you to awaken strengthened to face the new day. The second sign are dreams of light or protective figures without defined face. Saint Teresa warned not all dreams are divine revelations. Most are natural products of imagination processing the day's experiences. But different dreams exist, dreams leaving a lasting impression of peace and protection. Dreams where a luminous presence appears not threatening but consoling. These oniric presences don't always take human form. Sometimes they're simply warm light enveloping you in sleep. Other times they're tall, serene figures remaining at distance but radiating absolute security. Saint Teresa experienced both types, and she understood they were manifestations of her angel making himself present in dreams' symbolic language, allowing her conscious soul to perceive something of his nocturnal vigilance. Don't deliberately seek these manifestations. Don't force your imagination before sleeping expecting to see angels. That would be presumption and could open you to deceptions. But when these dreams come spontaneously, when you wake remembering them with unusual clarity, when they leave in you certainty of having been protected, recognize them with gratitude as genuine signs of angelic presence. The third sign is sudden awakening without preceding nightmare. You've experienced this many times without understanding its meaning. Suddenly, in middle of night, you open your eyes without apparent reason. You haven't had a nightmare. There's no external noise that woke you. You simply pass from deep sleep to waking in an instant, and after seconds of confusion, you fall back asleep tranquilly. Saint Teresa explained these awakenings are interventions by your angel. In the invisible world, he just drove away some negative influence approaching your sleeping soul. And the spiritual movement of that silent battle touches your consciousness, briefly awakening you. It isn't disturbance, it's protection. Your angel just freed you from something you won't even know threatened you. Don't fear these nocturnal awakenings. Don't interpret them as insomnia or health problem if they're brief and sporadic. Recognize them as what they are, moments when the veil between visible and invisible momentarily thins, allowing you to intuit your heavenly guardian's constant vigilance, thank mentally, and return to sleep confidently. The fourth sign is inexplicable absence of recurring nightmares. Perhaps for years you suffered the same distressing dream returning periodically, and suddenly, without therapy or external changes, those nightmares ceased, not gradually, but definitively. Saint Teresa taught this sudden cessation of repetitive nocturnal torments is almost always the guardian angel's work. Recurring nightmares frequently have spiritual origin, not only psychological. They're doors the enemy has managed to open in your imagination, taking advantage of ancient traumas or deep fears. And when the angel receives sufficient collaboration from you during the day, when your prayer life strengthens, when your soul draws closer to God, he obtains divine permission to definitively close those doors. If you've experienced this liberation from nightmares tormenting you, recognize in it your angel's protective hand. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't simply psychological maturity. It was grace obtained through angelic intercession. And it deserves your conscious gratitude, your grateful recognition someone fought for your sleep's peace. The fifth sign is feeling comforting presence upon awakening from a fright. This is different from sudden awakening without nightmare. Here there is terrifying experience. You wake with racing heart, perhaps after dreaming you were falling or being pursued. But immediately after initial terror, without you doing anything to calm yourself, a wave of peace envelops you. As if someone had invisibly embraced you saying, "I'm here, don't fear." Saint Teresa experienced this countless times. and she always recognized it as direct consolation from her angel. The heavenly guardian can't always prevent you from going through moments of nocturnal fear, because sometimes that fear has purifying function. But he never leaves you alone in it. Immediately after he consoles you, reminds you of his presence, returns the peace the fright interrupted. When this happens to you, don't ignore that sudden peace. Don't simply attribute it to your nervous system calming down. Recognize in it your angel's specific touch, and respond interiorly with gratitude, with renewed confidence. That silent dialogue strengthens the bond between your soul and your guardian. The sixth sign is inexplicable physical protection during sleep. You've rolled in bed to the edge without falling. Your arm has been in an uncomfortable position all night without waking numb. You've slept with window open on cold night without getting sick. Small everyday miracles passing unnoticed, but revealing protection going beyond simple luck. Saint Teresa understood the angel also guards the body, not only the soul. He protects your breathing from dangerous interruptions. He guards your heart from nocturnal arrhythmias. He prevents your body from being damaged in sleep's involuntary movements. It isn't superstitious to believe this. It's recognizing divine providence acts concretely and does so mainly through your guardian angel. The seventh sign is awakening with solutions to problems worrying you. You went to bed confused before a difficult decision. You didn't specifically pray asking for light. You simply fell asleep carrying that worry. And upon awakening, without deliberate mental process, you have clarity. You know what to do. The answer is there in your mind, as if it had always been, but only now you can see it. Saint Teresa explained this happens because the angel, contemplating your confusion in the sleeping soul, interceded before God, asking light for you. And God responded, planting that clarity in your spirit during the night. It's not your intelligence that solved the problem while you slept. It's grace arriving through angelic intercession, and it deserves you recognize it as such. The eighth and last sign is the most subtle. Feeling spontaneous gratitude upon awakening without knowing exactly why. Some dawns you open your eyes, and the first thing springing in your heart is thankfulness. You haven't remembered any specific blessing. You haven't consciously thought of God yet. But there's gratitude, pure and simple, filling your chest like the first ray of sun fills the room. Saint Teresa taught this morning gratitude, without clear object, is the soul's response to the angel's nocturnal vigilance. Your spirit perceived during sleep it was cared for, protected, accompanied. And though your conscious mind doesn't remember anything specific, your soul does know, and responds with the most appropriate language before love, sincere gratitude. Not all these signs appear in all people or on all nights. But if you recognize even one of them in your experience, you have confirmation your angel is faithfully watching. And that certainty should change the way you go to bed each night and awaken each morning. Saint Teresa of Avila received, during one of her deepest ecstasies, a revelation moving her to tears. The Lord showed her there exists an intimate connection between your guardian angel's daily nocturnal vigilance and his presence in your last night on earth. The angel who has accompanied you each time you closed your eyes during your entire life will be who's at your side when you close them for the last time. And what he'll see in that definitive hour depends on what he's contemplated in you during all your years of sleep. Death, the saint taught, is the body's supreme sleep and the soul's supreme awakening. It's the moment when finally your spirit opens its eyes to complete reality, while your flesh enters the rest from which it will only resurrect at end of times. And in that infinitely delicate transition instant, your guardian angel fulfills his most important mission, bringing you before God. But the way he brings you, the state in which he presents you, is profoundly related to everything he observed in you during your nights of earthly life. Each time you slept under his vigilance, your angel came to know your soul's truth. He saw your deepest fears and how you confronted them. He contemplated your unconscious prayers and the sincerity of your search for God. He observed the traces your days left and your will or negligence in cleaning them. Saint Teresa understood that's why how we live our nights matters so much. Not only for the immediate rest we receive, but because each night is preparation for that final night. Each time you go to bed trusting in God, invoking your angel, surrendering your day with its lights and shadows, you're rehearsing the definitive surrender you'll make upon dying. The saint described death as lying down in God's arms, and the guardian angel is who holds you during that passage. If during your life he accustomed you to trust in his invisible presence, if during decades of nights you learned to rest knowing someone was watching, then in your last night you'll recognize that familiar presence, and you won't be afraid. Many people fear death because they fear the transit's solitude. They think they'll die alone, even surrounded by family. And in a sense, they're right. No one can completely accompany you in that step. No one except your guardian angel. He does cross the threshold with you. He does remain at your side when everything else vanishes. He does hold you when your soul separates from your body. Saint Teresa recounted that in her last illness, when she knew her death was near, she experienced supernatural peace. Not because she didn't feel her exhausted body's physical pain, but because she recognized her angel's presence more clearly than ever. It was as if all those nights of religious life in which she'd practiced the nocturnal ritual had prepared her for this supreme moment. What your angel will see in your last night won't be different from what he's seen every previous night. It will be the culmination, the total sum, the definitive expression of what you've been. If you lived seeking God imperfectly but sincerely, your angel will see in your dying soul that search finally reaching its object. If you lived in tepidness or distance, he'll see that distance you yourself created. But here's the most beautiful promise Saint Teresa received. Even in the last night, even in the last moment, the guardian angel continues interceding. It's never too late to turn to God while a thread of life remains. And the angel, who knows every detail of your history because he's contemplated it night after night for decades, knows exactly what to present before divine mercy to obtain your salvation. He'll remember before God that night when you cried repentant, though you confessed it to no one. He'll present those trembling prayers you raised amid your pain when you believed no one was listening. He'll show each small act of charity you did and forgot, but that remained engraved on your soul and that he contemplated while you slept. Nothing of your good is lost. Your angel has kept everything. Saint Teresa taught this is the profound reason we should honor our guardian angel during life. Not out of superstition or fear, but out of anticipated gratitude, because whoever will accompany you in your last night deserves your recognition in all previous nights. Whoever will present you before God deserves you. Invoke him each time you close your eyes to sleep. Saint Teresa's death was testimony to this truth. Those present recounted she expired with extraordinary peace and sweetness. Her last words were of gratitude to God for making her die as daughter of the Church. And though no one could see the invisible, everyone felt she wasn't alone, that someone else was in that room, someone luminous coming to seek her to bring her home. The final promise Saint Teresa received about the last night is this: whoever learned during their life to rest in God, who trusted their nocturnal sleep to their angel's vigilance, who didn't fear closing their eyes knowing someone was watching, that soul won't fear closing their eyes for the last time. They'll recognize in their death the same act of confidence they practiced thousands of times upon going to bed each night. Saint Teresa of Avila lived and died with certainty she was never alone in any of her nights. And now you know the secret she kept for years before sharing it with her spiritual daughters. You know what your angel sees while you sleep. You know he contemplates your breathing as the soul's language, that he reads your day's traces engraved on your spirit, that he discovers your most buried fears and your most sincere prayer. You know he weaves continuous protection over your rest and awaits each night that you avoid the forgettings obscuring his vigilance. Tonight, when you close your eyes, you won't do it the same way anymore. You'll know someone remains awake for you, that a luminous presence accompanies you in darkness, that your sighs are heard and your needs known before you name them. And that certainty will transform your rest into continuous prayer, your sleep into sanctuary, your night into preparation for that definitive night when your angel will finally bring you home. Never forget each night is rehearsal for eternity. Each time you surrender to sleep trusting in God, you practice the final surrender you'll someday make. And your angel, faithful witness of all your nights, will be who holds you in that supreme step, presenting before divine mercy all the good he contemplated in you while the world slept. If this message touched your heart, share it with those you love so they too may know the loving vigilance that never ceases. Subscribe to this channel where we'll continue exploring the mysteries Saint Teresa left us. And before going to bed tonight, invoke your guardian angel. He's waited your entire life to hear his name on your lips. Don't make him wait any longer. May Saint Teresa intercede for you. May your angel guard you, and may each night be safe passage toward the eternal dawn, where finally you'll see face to face the one who loved you first and kept you always. Rest in peace, knowing you're never alone in darkness.